Do you ever get the feeling they're incapable of not caring? People are amazing.
A man named Charlie is teaching his students via video link. The camera on his laptop is not working, so no one can see him. It turns out that on the other side of the screen all this time was a man suffering from obesity. Today is Monday. Any movement is very difficult for Charlie. A stranger entered his small apartment. Seeing that the man was not feeling well, the guy wanted to call an ambulance, but Charlie refused. It turned out that the stranger was a missionary. Charlie asked him to hand him the phone, as he was unable to bend down to pick it up. He called his friend who was a nurse. Liz examined Charlie and advised him to call an ambulance urgently, but he refused because his medical insurance had long since expired. After checking Charlie's blood pressure, Liz was horrified because it was very high. She helped her friend to stand up so that he could go to the toilet, as he had not done so all day. Thomas looked at this with sincere pity. He learned that Liz was the daughter of one of the preachers at the New Life Church. However, Liz hates their teachings, considering it all nonsense. In her opinion, Charlie would also not be thrilled to join their flock, as the biggest tragedy in his life is associated with them. The church was responsible for the doom of Charlie's boyfriend. This statement shocked Thomas. Liz continued to try to convince her friend to go to the hospital because if he doesn't do it now, he won't make it to the weekend. When Thomas started talking about love for God again, Liz kicked him out. She was angry that Charlie flatly refused to go to the hospital. It was painful for Liz to see her friend slowly ruining himself. He asked her to bring him fast food. The woman understands that this will further harm Charlie's health, but she was powerless to do anything. Left alone, Charlie reread an essay about a pirate who dreams of catching a white whale. His whole life was devoted to this hunt. It's very sad because the whale has no emotions. Charlie struggled to reach his bed. Before going to sleep, he drank a high-calorie soda, realizing he shouldn't be doing that. The story of the pirate and the whale made Charlie reflect on his own life. Tuesday arrived. Charlie as usual checked his students' essays. He had a huge amount of sweets in the cupboard. Overcoming himself, he put the chocolate back and began to Google the dangerous consequences of obesity. From what he read, Charlie understood that with symptoms like his, he needed to call 911 urgently. Upset, the man again took out the chocolate from his stash, as it was his only way to fight depression. Later, he cleaned himself up. To distract himself, Charlie decided to feed the bird that often flew to his windowsill. Soon his daughter Ellie visited him for the first time in 8 years. She was shocked by the state her father had brought himself to. The girl didn't tell her mother that she came here, as she was against their communication. Ellie was angry with the father, who had abandoned her, and the mother. Charlie tried to convince his daughter that he cared. He called her mother whenever he could. Charlie really wanted to spend more time with Ellie, but she found him disgusting. He left the family for one of his students when the daughter was 8. Since it was a long time ago, Charlie believed that he and his daughter could get to know each other better. He even offered to pay Ellie and help her write a school essay in exchange for her company. Hearing that her father had $120,000 in his account, the girl became interested. She suddenly asked him to stand up and come to her without his crutches.
I can't really.
Shut up!
Charlie had a very hard time breathing, but he still tried to get up. As expected, he fell. Without saying a word, Ellie left. Even when a courier came to deliver food, Charlie doesn't show his face, leaving the money in the mailbox. In the evening, Liz visited him again to try different breathing techniques to ease his overall condition. Liz was surprised to see Ellie's essay. She believed that Charlie wouldn't be able to communicate with his daughter by helping her with homework, as they hadn't talked in years. Moreover, Ellie shouldn't be here when her father could pass away at any moment. It would permanently traumatize her psyche. After looking through his daughter's social media, Charlie realized that she had no friends and was very strange. However, Liz believes that this is perfectly normal behavior for a teenager, and there is no reason to worry. Suddenly, Charlie choked on his food. Without losing her composure, Liz provided him with first aid and saved his life. She doesn't understand what she can do to bring her friend back to life. During another online course, Charlie didn't turn on his camera so that the students couldn't see what he looked like. It was Wednesday. Later, after seeing a photo of himself with his ex-boyfriend, Charlie was confused and finally decided to go into their shared room, which he hadn't done in years. He managed to reach the key on the shelf, but when it fell to the floor, Charlie couldn't bend over to pick it up. The daughter came to him again. While the father was correcting her essay, Ellie showed no interest. She read all those poems from the school curriculum, but didn't see any deep meaning in it. When Charlie asked the daughter how her mother was doing, he found out that she was abusing alcohol. He doesn't even know exactly where they live now.
When I was 11, we moved to the other side of town.
When the daughter saw that very photo, she asked the father directly why he gained weight. Charlie told her that he fell into depression when his loved one passed away. Charlie was shocked to learn that Ellie remembers the student with whom he had a romance. She even remembers how the father once brought him home when her mother was not there. Ellie asked how his boyfriend died. Charlie didn't answer the question, asking his daughter to write at least a couple of lines for her essay. Seeing how difficult it was for her father to cope with even the most basic tasks, Ellie experienced conflicting emotions. Charlie went to the bathroom and cried out of helplessness. At that moment, someone knocked on the door. Ellie saw Thomas on the doorstep, who came to visit Charlie. Upon learning that Thomas belonged to the New Life Church, Ellie said everything she thought about religion. In her opinion, it is a collection of arrogant fools who thought they are better and smarter than everyone else. Thomas didn't expect Ellie to take his photo before leaving. When they were alone, Thomas read Charlie's religious pamphlets. The guy believes that the end of the world is coming soon, and something pure and perfect will replace the old world. Charlie wasn't interested in listening to all of this. He had read all the books on this faith before, and it didn't convince him of the correctness of their teachings. Thomas tried to convince Charlie that God had not really abandoned him. He also believes that fate brought them together not by chance. All Thomas wants is to help Charlie. He picked up the same keys from the floor and opened the door. When Thomas asked Charlie what happened to his boyfriend, Liz entered. Seeing the preacher from the New Life Church, Liz was not pleased, but still didn't chase him away. She brought a wheelchair for Charlie. At first he didn't like the idea, but then he realized that it wasn't so bad. Previously the chair belonged to one of the patients, but now he no longer needs it. Liz asked Thomas for a private conversation. When they went out onto the porch, she demanded that Thomas leave Charlie alone. However, Thomas is not going to back down, believing that Charlie needs a spiritual mentor for the sake of salvation. Then Liz decided to tell Thomas about her brother, who was also a missionary. Unlike him, Liz never attended church. When her brother refused to marry the religious girl that their father had found for him, he was excommunicated from the church. However, even this did not make Alan renounce his faith. He hated himself, stopped sleeping and eating, lost a lot of weight. One day Alan didn't come home, and a couple of weeks later his body was found on the shore. Alan is the love of Charlie's life. Thomas is still convinced that God sent him in a time of need to save Charlie, but Liz didn't want to hear anything about it. Charlie overheard part of the conversation. Thomas had run away. In the evening, Liz turned on the TV for the friend and went to work. However, Charlie wasn't in the mood for watching TV shows. Instead, he took a book of poetry from the shelf and opened it. The courier left the food at the door again. It turned out his name was Dan. He had been coming here for a long time and finally decided to introduce himself. This confused Charlie. At night, Charlie ate fast food as usual and watched TV. Later, he decided to read the couple of lines that Ellie had written. She wrote that she hated everyone. Charlie found a poetic rhythm in those lines, which triggered a fit of hysterical laughter followed by tears. On Thursday, his daughter visited him again and asked if he had finished the essay. The father asked her to write a couple more lines. Ellie reluctantly complied with the request. The father told her that she shouldn't be angry at the whole world, but only hate him. Furious, Ellie told the parent that he had no right to judge her. He hadn't talked to her in 8 years, so he couldn't tell her what was right and what was wrong now. Charlie tried to justify himself by saying that Th's ex-wife forbade him from seeing his daughter, but Ellie still wondered why he never called her even once. Despite being offended, Ellie decided to cook him lunch, but not fast food, something dietary and healthy. She doesn't want to lead her father to the grave, like everyone else who indulges him in his gluttony. When her father fell asleep, Ellie smoked and then looked into his room, where there was a terrible mess. In the other room where he used to live with Alan, it was clean. Thomas came in again. The guy didn't like Ellie's questions, but he still admitted that he had suffered from addiction in the past, but found salvation in religion. Ellie doesn't believe in Thomas's good intentions, who says he wants to help Charlie. The girl took his picture again when he lit up a cigarette. It was against Thomas's religion, so Ellie accused him of hypocrisy. Thomas was wary when Ellie said she knew he wasn't from New Life Church. She found out from a familiar boy who belongs to their flock. Ellie demanded that Thomas answer who he was, then the guy panicked and locked himself in another room. When Ellie promised not to tell anyone the truth, Thomas confessed that his father had once given him to be a missionary, hoping it would help him get rid of his addiction. In the end, Thomas couldn't take it anymore and left, but he didn't find any peace for his soul. He realized that handing out flyers with religious texts to people didn't really help anyone. Thomas was confused about what was right and what was not. Now Thomas is on the run because he stole from the church. He stole $2,500, threw away his phone, and got on a bus. That's how he ended up here. As he told it, Thomas had no idea that Ellie is recording their conversation on a dictaphone. Seeing a church book, he opened it and saw an enclosed photo of Charlie with Alan. Suddenly Liz and Ellie's mother Mary came in. She was not happy that the daughter was spending time with her father. Mary suspected that Ellie was here because of the money. Learning that Charlie had money, Liz was confused. He could have spent it on his health, but instead he continues to ruin himself. Charlie said he saved the money for Ellie, wanting to somehow make up for his guilt. Not knowing what to answer, Liz left. Mary also told the daughter to leave, telling her to forget about the money until she turns 18. In a fit of emotion, Ellie screamed at her father that she hated him. He begged her to take the essay he had written specifically for her. Despite her anger, she took it and left. Seeing how her ex-husband had deteriorated, Mary felt sorry for him. Due to his shortness of breath, he constantly coughed, as his weight was pressing on him. Charlie regretted his mistakes and not being there for his daughter. Mary admitted that she was having a hard time dealing with Ellie. She had grown into a very angry girl. As proof of her words, Mary showed him a post from her social media profile. There was a photo of Charlie with an insulting caption. Charlie wasn't upset, causing his ex-wife to have a temper tantrum. According to her, the daughter had always loved her father very much, and when he left them, she became embittered at the world. Ellie had always lacked love. Charlie was shocked when Mary said she was sorry for what happened to Alan. Mary had hated this man for years, but in the end she was able to forgive him. Charlie reminisced about the happy days of their family life, which was a long time ago. Listening to this, Mary couldn't hold back her tears. She remembered that her ex-husband was slowly dying. She like Liz tries to convince him to go to the hospital because he has the money, but Charlie refuses to do so. Before he passes away, Charlie wants to make sure he did something right in his life. Mary left, and he was alone again. He dozed off and dropped his smartphone on the floor. Suddenly Charlie noticed that the bird feeder was broken. It was probably Ellie who did it. Dan brought him food again, and as usual took the money from the mailbox. The courier always asked if everything was okay with him. Charlie every time answered that everything was fine, but he didn't know that this time the guy stayed to finally look at him. Seeing the man, Dan was shocked. Charlie, on the other hand, continued to eat fast food in huge quantities, bringing himself closer to the grave. In a burst of emotion, he wrote to the students in the group chat that all to be liars. Charlie was not going to stop in his frenzied gluttony and emptied the refrigerator and all his food stash. So he filled the blank inside, sobbing from helplessness. Someone knocked on the door. It was Thomas, who came to confess that he was not who he had pretended to be all this time. It turned out that Ellie sent his photos and the audio recording of their conversation to all social networks. Thomas did not expect that after this the parents would call him and say that they forgive him. He did a bad thing, but in the end it's just money. Before going home, Thomas still wants to save Charlie. According to him, Alan deceased because he blamed himself for trading service to God for love for Charlie. And that feeling of guilt destroyed him. Charlie talked about how he fell in love with Alan. Thomas didn't really enjoy listening to it. Suddenly the man said he hoped there was no afterlife and that Alan couldn't see what he had brought himself to now. Thomas couldn't take it anymore and called Charlie disgusting. After calming down, Charlie apologized and told Thomas to go home to his family. Friday. Charlie confessed to the students that he became a different person and wants them to rewrite their essays. From now on, he is honest with the people around him, so he showed the students his face and everything else for the first time. Of course, they were shocked. The teacher told them that the course and the lessons meant nothing and then smashed his laptop. Later, Liz visited him again. Charlie's breathing became increasingly difficult. Liz couldn't hold back her tears because she didn't want the same thing to happen to him as had happened to Alan. Nevertheless, Liz brought him a portion of meatballs with cheese, realizing that there was nothing else she could do to help him. Charlie in turn feels guilty for not being able to save Alan. He sincerely believes that Ellie wanted to help Thomas, which is why she did what she did. Ellie came in. Her aggressive attitude changed when she realized that her father was dying. Hugging the friend goodbye, Liz left them alone. It turned out that the essay Charlie wrote was not accepted. The girl had not read the essay, but when she unfolded it, she was surprised to find that it was actually her own essay about the pirate and the whale that she wrote in 8th grade. Mary sent Charlie this several years ago so he could know something about his daughter. Charlie asked for forgiveness. Once he fell in love and left his family. Now he didn't understand how he could have done that. In the last minutes of his life, Charlie wanted his daughter to read her essay aloud for him. Ellie couldn't take it anymore and was about to leave, but at the last moment, she stopped and fulfilled her father's request. Standing up and approaching his daughter,